Hello, everyone. It's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I have this horrible green screen behind me, which means that it is an interview. That green screen is going to be going away once we get to our new place, which means I have an interview. I have the awesome and amazing, the lovely Kelly Lane with an
Thank
E from the nonpartisan CWAC organization dealing with an anti-corruption candidate contract organization. Kelly was my eyes and ears on the ground at the left forum. She wasn't originally, but I wanted somebody who was there to talk to. So Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamarl. Good to see you again. And sorry you weren't at Left Forum this year.
I wanted to come this year. It was at the last minute that I wasn't able to show up, but I wanted to come.
Yeah, it was good. I think didn't we meet the first time at last Left Forum, right?
It wasn't the first time. We met once before at
Convergence.
yeah.
Okay.
One of the panels for the Brana thing.
Right. Okay. So this year it was in Brooklyn at Long Island University in Brooklyn instead of in Manhattan. So a lot of people were saying there was a smaller turnout. Maybe that was because they changed venue. I don't know, but I thought it was good. We had, there were great panels.
Now, what were your impressions of it? So I remember, and I think I mentioned this to you before. I think the last time I left the left forum, and maybe I'm thinking of the public thing, but all of them to some degree, and this might be, some aspect of me being antisocial, but I didn't get a huge amount out of it. Now, I say that again with a massive grain of salt. This could be kind of like somebody picking up a hammer saying, this hammer isn't doing its job when really they were using it as a hat. So it could be me not necessarily having the best tools in order to utilize, the tools that were at their disposal. What was your impression of this? Did you feel like, so two things. Did you feel like it was useful? And if you did feel like it was useful, how and why? Like, what was the aspect of it that you thought was useful? And in which ways did you think you could use it?
Well, it's very useful to me because, I go to these things to learn stuff, but also to connect with other people in election integrity. That was a great panel with Lulu Freistat, who started smartelections.us. Please check it out. I'm working with her a little bit, just volunteer basis. And also the panel that was supposed to be Matt Taibbi, but he wasn't there at the last minute, was Jordan Sheridan and Katie Halper and another woman, and Erin Matei, another woman I've forgotten her name. Yeah. So that was, fighting the corporate media, basically. So that is like, I loved that. I was like sitting on the edge of my seat the whole time because that's my thing. Erin, of course, talked about Russiagate, and we talked about corporate media. And then the other one, I was torn between going to this one on capitalism with Richard Wolff, and I feel like I probably would have learned more in that one. I really was torn between these two, but I ended up in the panel with.
What was the other one? Oh, you mean between the election, not the election, the media one versus the Richard Wolff one.
Oh, no, sorry. It was, so I went to the media one and the election integrity one, and then I was torn between the capitalism one with Richard Wolff and the panel with Randy Credico and Michael Isikoff. And I made the right decision, except I didn't live stream it, and now I'm kicking myself because there is no video of this or audio on YouTube of Randy's panel. So I actually got to debate there wasn't a big audience in this one, and I got to debate one-on-one with Michael Isikoff, which
was nice. Now, if people don't remember, Isikoff is the one that wrote the book on the Russiagate stuff. He backed away from it to some degree, even though he stayed with the notion of the Russia, interference angle. Now, what was your contention with Isikoff? I got into a debate with a guy today that shocked me to no end, when I've known this guy at least for over a year. And I'm talking about something that's taking place on the media, and he says, there's no way to know if there'll ever be another election in the United States. He says Donald Trump was working with the Russians, and they may have this election iced. And my mouth hit the floor. My mouth hit the floor. So what was your debate, or what was your conversation?
Okay, well, there were two other people in the audience, two other guys in the audience that really hit back at him even harder. But no, excuse me, three. But we were all kind of saying the same thing, and it comes down to the whole the leak versus hack debate, right? The article in the Nation, which explains the VIPS team, which is Binney and McGovern, saying that everything points more to a leak than a hack, and then the dissenting team, which is Thomas Drake, Lisa Ling, Jesselyn Raddick, and someone else I can't remember the name right now. But so the people were debating with Isikoff like whether there's any real evidence either way. And he actually said out loud to this guy in the room, Ray McGovern is full of shit.
Wow. Wow. Well, he has to take that position.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean, it is difficult to not take that position. I mean, you can make an argument that says, look, the stuff was downloaded and then handed over to the Russians. You could say stuff like that. But, Ray McGovern and Binney have taken the most straightforward approach of saying that Isikoff is completely wrong. And both things, can't be true.
Well, this is my understanding. And I've asked, as a guy we know, John Papa, who helps me dissect some of the IT stuff that, I'm not an IT person. And this is the problem, that we're relying on, other people's analysis to tell us what the truth is. Like how, if you get into trying to read the Forensicator, that website, which I have, but
that's always
complicated.
We've got to
know
where, because our societies have started to, we have these massive cities. And so there's like 20 million people in the United States. And with that many people, for the most part, you need certain iconography in order for those people to kind of coalesce and kind of, come together. There's no direct interaction with that stuff anymore. You're always stuck with this notion of being somewhat separated from the information. And so
right, you need to have someone explain it and a trusted source to say, because I can read about download speeds and all this, and I understand some of it, but again, I'm not an IT person. But here's the kicker. So I could tell. So I first thing I said, actually, let me back up. The first thing I said to Isikoff was, first of all, this notion that Trump won only because of WikiLeaks.
That's nonsense.
Is nonsense. And so this is how I started off. And I got, I would call them glares from him. I said, look, it was a populist, anti-establishment vote, largely, right? And please listen, liberal. I don't know how many times I can scream about that book. But so I said that first. So I think he was not real pleased right off the bat, didn't really want to hear any more from me. But as people started debating this whole, bringing up Binney and McGovern and the VIPS team and the dissenting team, Isikoff says, well, that Ray McGovern's full of shit. And here's this other team that said they were wrong. And so I
literally said Ray McGovern. That's a quote. Yes. Ray McGovern is full of shit.
Yes. I wish I had live streamed it. And I can't, there was a crew in there that's working on a documentary for Randy Credico. And I asked Randy, and he said they wouldn't give it up because they're working on it. I just wanted the audio from like the question and answer part. But anyway, but get this. So Isikoff is trying to say that the dissenting group against the VIPS team knew definitively that they were wrong. Well, guess what? And it's publicly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's publicly on Twitter. I reached out to one of the people on the dissenting team. Her name is Lisa Ling. She reluctantly answered me, and then I think I kind of annoyed her. She was like, well, she said, "You're relentless, aren't you?" But I was trying to get her to join one of our discussions, because the thing is, I just want the facts. I want the truth. What is it? Can we definitively say whether it was a leak or a hack? And from everything I understand from, John Papa, who helps me sort of decipher things. I trust him. Other people I asked, and Lisa Ling herself said you cannot say definitively one way or another. And so I'm sitting there with my hand up, and I just was not going to give in because I had to say that, because I had direct contact with someone on the dissenting team, and it's on Twitter. And he did not want me to speak. And
Well,
but I got that out.
Tell that you, well, even in the Mueller report, like even just going by the Mueller report itself, Mueller doesn't know. Like he doesn't know that the Russians did that. Mueller is making certain assumptions, and when you're in the report, like you look to this point of, okay, how did the information get passed? And he doesn't know. He's making these kind of leaps and these guesses.
Exactly.
The report doesn't definitively say that XYZ. They're assuming a lot of this stuff. And recently, in the lawsuit that was taking place, because the people that Mueller indicted, one of those companies, a Russian company, is in the court trial now, and the judge had just kind of browbeat the prosecutor for saying or making certain aspersions that this company was the government because they didn't know. Like there's all sorts of leaps and bounds that these guys are making in this process.
Yeah, going from Russian company to just Russia, like conflating all this stuff. But anyway, so what really was happening was Isikoff was trying to use the dissenting team and their conclusion as direct evidence that Ray McGovern's full of shit. And I said, no, actually, I've spoken to one of them. And she told me that it was not definitive, and he did not want to hear that. But this is what I find interesting.
Oh, wait. He could think Ray McGovern. Don't misunderstand me. It's like Mike Isikoff can't honestly take the perspective that what he's saying is absolutely flat fact. Because Mueller doesn't even know if it's a flat fact.
You know what he said to me after I said that? I said, this person said that you can't say one way or another. He just kind of got like flustered, and he said, well, are you going to go against all the intelligence agencies? And I'm like, and then this other guy pipes up, you mean Mueller that told us weapons of mass destruction? So, I mean, we kind of went at him, but he was just not.
He wasn't hearing it.
No.
I mean, look, to Isikoff's credit, he's slightly backed away when many of the other ones just kept digging a ditch. So I give him a modicum of credit for at least that point of at the very least coming to the conclusion, okay, maybe it's not as much as I thought, but it's still there, and my book is still valid. He has a book to sell. Like, so it's I'm not saying this.
My problem with it is we have a massive failure in journalism. And I think, Aaron, the buzzsaw Matei, as you named him, does a fantastic job, because have you seen the video where he does on Reality Winner and James Risen hangs up on him?
Yes. Yeah. That was an amazing video.
Because Aaron just says, no, I'm just trying to get to the facts. I'm not picking one side or the other, but they don't like it when you get to the bottom of it, is that you cannot say definitively. There's no evidence.
The interesting part about the video was Aaron Matei showing the evidence that they had at their disposal. And in showing the evidence, he's asking Risen, is this what you were using?
Yep.
Into your assessment? And Risen gets, really dicey.
Yep.
And at a certain point, he hangs up on him. But the fact of the matter is, the Intercept, if I'm not mistaken, it's been 3 times that people have leaked stuff to the Intercept, and those people have gotten caught. And it is a fair question to ask, why is the organization that you are working for continuously getting people busted? I haven't yet to hear anybody answer this. The Intercept gets clamoring, we don't want to talk about people who may have given us information. They already know. The people are literally being indicted one after the next. The 3rd person recently got indicted. Gave information to the Intercept. 3rd person recently got indicted. The war things, the stuff that was given to Jeremy Scahill talking about the drone bombings. That guy got caught. The question becomes, why
don't give stuff to the Intercept.
Why do they keep getting busted?
Well, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I will say I think that the Reality Winner case and VR systems in Florida could be I think that might be the whole linchpin of all of it. I mean, that, as Aaron pointed out in that interview with Risen, that was really that's their evidence they're showing. Spear phishing email from Gmail or something. And interestingly, VR systems deny, or they wouldn't like make a statement. So there's something funny there. And how Governor DeSantis of Florida was not, he had to sign something saying he wouldn't reveal which 2 counties in Florida were supposedly hacked. Anyway, but I just wanted to say that Isikoff's reaction and Risen's reaction, I think it just shows that there are people, I guess, on whatever, Democrats, I don't know what to call them, the left Democrats, that they have to know on some level. They're journalists. They know that there isn't evidence, that after all this time there isn't, and that's going to make the Democrats look really bad, right? And so they get into this thing where they have this reaction of, I've seen it multiple times, like on interviews, and personally experienced it. They get loud, they get argumentative, they just shut down. It's like you cannot get through. They don't want to hear it because it would make their side look bad. And that's what we're dealing with now.
Well, part of it is because they just kind of assume that this is the world, this is reality. Mm-hmm. And so, somebody hitting that goes against this notion of, I can't believe that you're questioning me on this issue that is settled reality from mm-hmm. people who I typically associate with. It is not settled reality for me. And, if we're going to have a conversation about it, you're going to have to explain to me why you believe XYZ is true. And oftentimes what you find is that they can't do that. Like you get it, like most people, I'm not talking about like the journalists, the people who are ensconced in the Russia stuff, who can really like argue the Russians did something in a way that comes across as legit. I'm talking about just regular people who say, yeah, Trump was working with the Russians.
Well, now, because there's this disconnect that they can't understand how this person could have won.
No, it's not that.
I mean, I wish I could. I tweeted, do what?
No, it's not that. They don't care. There's a difference in those things.
Okay.
I'm basing this off of, think of how
some people don't think that there's any way other than
that's true.
You know what I mean? They don't believe it. Yeah.
That's true.
They haven't read Listen Liberal. They don't understand.
And to me, most of the people I come across, they don't care. And look, it may be a little bit of both. Like it's no reason to believe that something is one or the other. But it's often this thing of I just want them out of office.
Right.
That's usually where it goes to. I just want them out of office.
Exactly. But what precedent are we setting for your side when we do and think about clear, I'm an independent, so And
think about what they're doing today. They're trying to impeach Donald Trump for a tweet.
Yeah.
Now, I am startled by having a president tell African Americans to go back to Africa. That's astonishing. Like 2019. So it's not so much that I think that tweet is awesome. I think that tweet is horrendous, especially since that's going to be what he's running on. Meaning he's running on racism for his campaign, believing that he can dredge up enough hatred out of the population to, bring this in. Not to mention the left often have a knee-jerk reaction to this type of stuff, which sometimes even helps the side up.
Well, let's not forget, though.
But they're trying to impeach him for that.
I know. And
initially, they were trying to impeach him for the Russia stuff. And now they've immediately moved over to, okay, now we have a better thing. Now we can go with the tweet. It just comes across so cartoonish that you're just looking for anything to impeach Trump on. Like, don't get me wrong. If they caught Trump on something legit, then I would be one of those people like, get his ass out of office. I don't care. Now, personally, I would rather run against Trump than Pence. But that's a personal choice on my thing. I think Trump is easier to beat. But this comes across in this weird cartoonish way that they're looking for anything to impeach him on, which guts the credibility of it.
Exactly.
And if you notice, Nancy Pelosi is like, I'm not for this. Nancy Pelosi is like, she's like, I'm going to condemn the president for being a racist, but I'm not for you guys using impeachment for this process. Nancy Pelosi is right.
Yep.
Pelosi is right.
Yeah, I try to stay out of all of those. I largely ignore Trump, what he says. I just, I'm trying to be focused on the grassroots candidates and now the work with Lulu's organization. So,
and by the way, you're right to do that.
Yeah.
Like if you notice, there was a clip that came on today where Sanders guy, somebody who's working on the Sanders campaign, was on CNN.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes this argument. He says, look, Donald Trump is trying to distract from the real issues. We want to talk about policy.
Right.
Like, they're like, you can't win. At least I don't think you can. And maybe you don't even want to. And a kind of identitarian political game. Like Hillary tried that in 2016 and lost.
They're still trying it, aren't they? I mean,
they're still trying it, but they're feeding into that. Like my point is, Donald Trump is running on this for a reason. He's not running on this because he believes he's going to lose money. He's running on it because he thinks the population just has enough, people who says, yeah, if those people don't like this country, they can get the hell out. Enough of those people who
right.
look at that tweet and say to themselves, I felt that way myself at times. And so I'm not going to condemn him for this, nor do I think that's problematic, because they themselves might have felt the same way.
And meanwhile, the airwaves are filled with this back and forth argument about this, right? And it keeps everyone fighting on either side, right? Instead of people going together against the corporate state, basically. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. And as long as they can continue to divide us that way, I think that's what they're going to do. Not to downplay what Trump said, because that was bad.
Well, right there. And that's the catch. It's this weird, this gentle, I guess, kind of dance, I guess, that needs to be done between, look, we're going to condemn any sort of overt racism in this way, while simultaneously, however, the way to deal with Trump is to get his ass out of office. And that's somewhat of a policy thing. That's not so much of getting kind of back and forth over identity issues. Mm-hmm. Like I'm unclear on what's the right amount of push down and push up, if that makes sense. The right amount of, you got to hit this, but simultaneously.
Yeah, you can't ignore all of it. But this notion of making it out still, I say, making out that all Trump voters are those racist people.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
Charlottesville is just.
Yeah, that's nonsense. I don't believe that at all.
No,
30% of those guys voted for Obama.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's like, well, what? They were racist after Obama? That's nonsense.
Right.
But that's what Clinton tried to do. But they do that for a reason. If you can coat the entire, like, if you can say that Donald Trump is definitively, horrendously racist, then, and you can instantiate that, then anybody who votes for him by definition, to some degree, are at the very least okay with him being that way. Part of the reason
Hillary isn't. I mean,
part of the reason why they're hitting him so hard on this very particular point is because they believe they can win on that. Mm-hmm. I don't think they can win on that, though. No. Like, clearly, they couldn't win on it the last time around.
No, they've got to offer people something.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I don't think this is a winning issue. I mean, I suspect that Trump is running on it for a reason. So your impressions, so you got something out of it. So good. This is an issue with me then. This is me being somewhat of a recluse. It's essentially working and interacting with people and being able to meet
that's more of it really for me is the panels are great, they're informative, but it's connecting with people afterwards at dinner, lunch, whatever, just talking with people in the halls and all that networking, because like again, we're going to try to get the grassroots candidates with CFAR and CWAC involved with Lulu's organization, smartelections.us. So one of the biggest problems I think that we have is, most of the country now, I think, questions our elections, whether they're legit, but it's for different reasons. Okay.
Yeah, that's so weird. That's so bizarre. I know.
Right.
Because Republicans, everybody thinks it's somebody else.
Right. Okay. So Republicans, they need to get off this voter fraud thing because it's like almost non-existent, right?
Or yet use it. I mean, this is kind of like the Republicans like to complain about high tax or like to complain about government debt. Fine. I care about the government debt too. We need to raise taxes on the top marginal tax rate.
Right, and cut military spending.
Yeah, if you it's like if you care about elections, you think they're fraudulent. Fine, let's support ensuring that we have clean and fair elections.
But the Democrats, all you hear, and I will say, and if any of my election integrity friends are listening, they know I do this all the time in person, and sometimes I'm surprised I don't get booted out for it. But this idea that it's just foreign interference.
Yeah,
is. I mean, some of them realize that's not it. But
the guy I was talking to today, and him and I were talking, and I said, I said, you realize that Republicans had far more influence in states like Wisconsin and some of these other states where Hillary Clinton needed, like these swing states, by shoving people off the rolls using like Operation Crosscheck and some of the voter stuff, because Democrats essentially allowed them to get a hold of the entirety of the country during the time of an election. Now, my point to him, and trying to make this point to him, that had a dramatically far more impact than the Russians.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? It's
absolutely.
like, yeah, the complaint about Facebook and Twitter ads most after the election.
That conflating, yeah.
Yeah, it's utter nonsense. And so it's like I was trying to point to him like, dude, your issues are internal. You know, your issues, the things that plague you, the things that bother you, those are internal to the country. It's not the goddamn Russian.
Right, exactly. And we need more education of the public, you know, that what is really going on. There's a great report out now, although interestingly, I'm not going to make any suppositions of why this happened, but Stacey Abrams' group, Fair Fight Action, had posted this report about ESNS, which is a voting machine manufacturer, about corruption, basically between, you know, bribery of election officials and things like that. And then all of a sudden it was gone and I couldn't find it anywhere and I didn't download it. So thankfully Lulu sent it to me, but I was just like, well, why would they take it down? Now it's possible. One time ESNS threatened to sue Audit USA for posting their manual online.
Oh, wow.
So see, the real secret here is it's the voting machine manufacturers and their business practices and how they're operating that we need to be concerned about, not voter fraud and not Putin. It's the internal, you know, it's the fact. I recently went to in Raleigh at a Board of Elections hearing, and one of the head guys from ESNS, I guess in the state anyway, was there. And what they do is the state, I guess, requires a voting machine manufacturer to put up, I can't remember what the amount is, but it's a lot of money for a bond. And that basically gives them the monopoly over the machines in the state. So there can't be competition from other machine, you know, voting machine manufacturers. So that's the real story there. And so, you know, both right and left, or whatever you want to call them, are missing that. And what Lulu's organization is trying to do is sort of shine a light on that, you know, educate people about the machines, get people organized around, you know, going to your Board of Elections meetings and finding out who's making the decisions about using machines that don't have a paper trail and things like that. So we're going to try to get candidates involved in those efforts to, I don't want to say storm the Board of Elections meetings, but sit-ins or something. So
you should storm the Board of Elections meetings.
Yeah. So they've been operating, you know, behind closed doors for decades and getting away with who knows what. So
I have to be honest, I don't understand it. You know, elections are probably one of the most important things like from the standpoint of like the thing to keep down revolutions. Let's say it that way. I mean, because ultimately you have this ideally peaceful handover of power, depending upon the country that you're in, from one side to the next, and almost this kind of formal pomp and circumstance of the governmental system itself. Not being able to, you know, ensure not just the propaganda, but like in a literal sense of the word, at a flat fact way, that the elections are taking place in earnest is problematic. That is extremely problematic, and that should be something that should be attended to. I don't care who the candidate is. You should care that the elections are fair.
Right. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. So last question. I can't believe Ray McGovern is full of shit. I can't believe Isikoff said that. That's so strong.
I just wish I had live streamed it. I'm hoping the guys that are working on the documentary for Randy Credico will include that, but I don't know.
So last question on this one. So I guess we got to the debate. We got to the impressions. And we even talked about the usefulness. Is there anything else you want to say about the left forum themselves? Like, are there any other impressions that you received? What other events did you go to? God, the Richard Wolff thing I went to once before was really, really good. Like, I really enjoyed. One of my favorite people online.
I think. What, you want a criticism of it, maybe, or?
Either. I mean, it's not a. I'm not looking for either or per se. It's more so just kind of. if I was there, I would get kind of a general feeling of the entirety of the event, the pluses, the minuses, the kind of like a totality feeling of it.
Right.
I'm not there for it, so I'm kind of pushing
Okay.
you.
Well, I
It's
would
what's
say,
your totality of feeling, I guess. And look,
okay.
if it's like, look, there are things that they could have done better. Fair enough. I kind of
Mhm.
want to hear that, but I kind of want to hear just kind of totality of how did
Well,
you?
I get a lot out of it for the reasons I already said, but I will say this. I think, and this is indicative of the whole problem with the left, if you ask me, they're
Uh-oh.
great panels. They're great panels, but people are kind of operating in their little silos,
Yes.
and if we're going to organize to get something done, each person at their panel thinks that issue is the number one thing and nothing else matters. I mean, that's the impression I get sometimes, and it is hard to kind of pull people out and maybe sort of get different people working together,
It is
especially,
true.
I'm always talking about independence and appealing to the non-voters, and it's hard to do that when your rhetoric is as I don't know. I hate to
That's
just
a
say
plague
left.
of the left. That is a plague of the left. I
Yeah,
mean, it is hurting cats, and that problem goes
yeah,
back centuries. Like
yeah.
even going all the way back to Spain, the Battle of Spain, back during the Spanish Civil War, you had the anarchists who started, getting a huge amount of, let's say, influence within the various regions of Spain. You had, in other cases, people who were on the left who were social democrats, or what might as well be considered social democrats, and they're not really Democrats. It's more so just the because they're still under like a monarch and everything else. But you have these various factions of the left. You have, the Marxists, you have the anarchists, and these two, for the most part, didn't get along with one another because one, the anarchists just kind of looked at it as this seems to be the most natural system on the planet, so why would we lump it into something else?
Hmm.
I guess my point is that's been somewhat of an issue for the longest time, and I think that's
Right.
they said the left is like herding cats and the right wingers
Yeah.
following them.
Yes, exactly. And I think, the whole premise of the other candidate contract that I work with, CFAR, which is Contract for American Renewal, even though it's left populist, is that each item is supported by more than half the country
The
based on
majority of the population, yeah.
right.
It's funny. The CFAR document that you guys have essentially Sanders' platform, more or less. I mean, there's more stuff like election integrity, but like the healthcare, the expansion of Social Security, those basic things.
Right.
And there shouldn't be any issue for somebody signing that if that person said that they were going to push for those things in general.
Right.
Um, the majority of the things that's on that list are favored by the majority of the population,
Mhm.
and
But it's how you word it. It's how you word things.
it's always how you word it.
And
Yeah.
this is something that the left, I I'm I
Well,
don't
the
I
left
jokingly
assumptions of the world is not true. Like for example, AOC talking about immigration. The country is not on AOC's side on immigration issues, it's on Trump's side, whether she realizes it or not. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't stop you from fighting for that issue because you can say the same thing about civil rights. The country wasn't necessarily on the side. It got to the point where the country became on their side, at least the majority, in which just kind of moved it on. But the left also has this assumption that it is inherently right.
Yes.
Like that, it's clearly the most logical thing in the world. You can see it on Sam Cedar. He reeks of it. It's disgusting.
Mhm.
This position is clearly the most logical position in the world. I mean, how
Yeah, but see, that would be my impression of left form. I think there are a lot of great people doing really great work, but it's like
they're not as
the
bad as you are.
Democratic Party they'll absorb all of your energy if they can. They will eat it alive
Yes, they will.
and suck it up under the Democratic tent, right?
Yes, they will.
But most of the people that I encounter in those groups would totally, when you say there are people that voted for Trump and that was their lesser evil, and it was an anti-establishment vote, and we need to reach out to them, I usually get some funny looks.
They can give you all the funny looks in the world. I mean, that's a position that you can argue. Like, look, I don't think lefties, if they really mean it, they need to mean it.
Mm-hmm.
And if your job and your objective is we want to get something accomplished and you want to get things, you want to
sometimes
make this notion of a better world as possible. If that's the position that a lefty is going to take, then you need to mean it. And that doesn't necessarily mean continuously propping up the structures that have allowed the world to be the way it is. It's like, oh, we need to vote for Hillary Clinton because what? You're voting for her purely out of this notion that we think she's worse than Trump. The problem is she keeps the structures in place that have always been in place.
Yeah.
And that argument for Clinton is the same argument that they use, between Obama and Romney, and that they'll use in 2020 and so forth. It's different, though, when you have somebody who's running on a vision of what they want.
Right.
Those are different things.
Mm-hmm.
You can get funny looks for that. And I suppose it is called the left forum. So you're going to have a bunch of Democrats there.
Right.
In my experience, the left forum was further to the left than some of the other forums. I mean, like they had like Richard Wolff. I remember one time they had Slajov Zizek. Like they've had, like the guy calls himself communist.
Oh, yeah.
They've had, but they're usually further to the left, meaning that anti, establishment vote.
Mm-hmm.
Should it be as funny of a look if that's supposed to be further to the left? Maybe not. I guess it depends on what they consider themselves to be, like what the left.
I don't know. There was a guy there that piped up in the audience, the corporate media panel, and he was talking about basically, a horseshoe, the theory that you have left and right, and it at some point, the population comes back around, and we agree on certain things. Military spending. We can agree with Rand Paul on some things, not cutting the 9/11 funding.
Yeah, he gets loony on some of that stuff.
Yeah.
The foreign policy stuff, he's on point. Ron Paul is like literally on point.
But ultimately, though, the I don't know. I hate to even say left and right. I don't know how you label all these things anymore.
Well, let's just say anti-establishment. Let's say because by left, I mean, let's define our terms. I guess by left, I just mean generally believe in universal health care, believe that public education should be free. I mean, there are gradients on how far that is. I would be, I guess, on a part in the gradient. I think public education should be free as almost as a human right. I think education should be free as a human right. I don't know how you tell an individual that they have the ability to get to the maximum of their human abilities if you don't have those things as something that they're not penalized for as the society itself. And if you're really a libertarian and you're in this notion of free association, it looks like you would be into this notion that people, it's like, how can you really have free association if you're entirely dependent for your needs to be met, including the need of education? I don't know how, you make that argument.
But see, if you were to ask about healthcare, if you were to ask a Tea Party, I mean, remember the signs, get the government out of my
goddamn hands on my government, over my Medicare. The government hands on my Medicare.
So if you get past the talking points and the rhetoric that is used and you start asking people questions, you find out, oh, wait, they actually do agree. And I think that is not on everything, not on like abortion and stuff like that, but especially on economic issues, they do agree. And I think that is ultimately what scares the establishment more than anything, and which is why they double down on all this identity politics stuff, flood the airwaves with it constantly, because the last thing they want is for that horseshoe for the people to meet on the other side, on some things and actually get stuff done, because that would be disastrous to the powers that be, the corporate state,
I agree with you. I think part of Sanders' strongest appeal, oddly enough, is economics. Mm-hmm. Like because of that, like the moment you get past identity stuff, and they think to themselves, well, I mean, the guy is not beating me over the head with identity stuff. He's talking about economics. In which case that gets beyond that person's personal identity stuff issues. You know what I mean? Like it gets past whether or not this guy tends to trend more towards the side of being okay with stuff Trump says that would be considered racist. Even though the person might say, look, I'm not racist at all, but I do believe I should get health care. I don't like the way Democrats are talking about it. Like it's that stuff. Like you get beyond the identity stuff, because the fact of the matter is 60% of the country is white. I think 13% is black. I think like 15% is Hispanic. You have lesser of Asian and so forth. They're not going to understand you. And trying to, beat people over the head to say, you need to understand this race. You need to understand that race, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look, yes and no. I mean, no in the sense that those people are probably not going to vote for you because they don't want to be browbeat. But on a more political sense, you get more people among issues to which they fall under the tent for. And the issues of economics, of ensuring, healthcare and everything else, that's the horseshoe thing. That's the, no, they're not going to agree on immigration entirely. No, they're not necessarily going to agree on abortion. They're not going to agree on a lot of this stuff. But when you get into issues that affect their wallet, yes.
Right. And it's a start. It's something. I mean, look at gun control stuff. I mean, the studies that came out that people across the board agree on a lot of what to do to fix that, but Congress doesn't fix it.
Congress doesn't fix it. Yes.
Why?
Yeah. It's not an issue of public will. It's more so an issue of congressional will.
Mm-hmm.
The differences in those things.
Yeah.
Kelly, is there anything we've been kind of running the gambit beyond the
we do that, don't we?
We haven't talked in a while. In fact, I think the last time I talked to you, it was at the last time we met, it was at the Left Forum, and I got hammered, and I couldn't go to the places that night or the very next day because I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna die."
Oh, right,
mojitos, yeah. Those things are brutal.
Two is the limit.
The funny part is, I've met with other people on the channel, and I've had drinks with them, and didn't have any issues. Like I went to Well, to be fair though, I think the difference is like, all right, you can't drink these back to back to back to back in a way that just like you kind of have to just pace the shit out over the course of the night.
Uh-huh.
When I was younger, it wasn't that way. As I've gotten older, it's more so. Mm-hmm. Alrighty, I'm going to end this here.
Well, it's great to talk to you, and we'll have you come on sometime when we get ramped back up with doing candidate panels and stuff like that. I'd love to have
you. Yeah, absolutely. For
anybody that's watching, I don't really promote a show, but we do candidate interviews and stuff. But on Saturday nights, I do host an open forum. If you just want to come on and talk, you can find me on YouTube. It's Kelly Lane, Kelley, and we post a Zoom link. And we talk about just about everything, but it's not something to sit and watch. I mean, you can if you want. It's not like your show, Jamarl. It's for people to participate, because I think people want to talk, and so you can come on with video or without. And Ebon Kim started basically that and helped me set it up. So we're kind of continuing that. But Saturday night, 10:30 Eastern time is usually when we start. And it goes an hour or two sometimes, depending on what people are talking about. So
is Ebon still doing his show?
I don't really know. I think he does some live streams, but he's been helping the consortium news with their live streams, like the debut last Friday. I think he was behind the scenes with Elizabeth Voss and Joe Loria and Nils somebody and Aaron Mate again. So
he showed up for that also.
Yes, he did.
Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
he's embracing the buzzsaw now as his nickname.
It's funny when he came into the show after like ghosting me like 2 or 3 times, and I kind of sent him a terse tweet, like a DM. I was like, dude, I understand you're doing well right now, but that's no reason to be an asshole in regards to talking to people. Because at that point it was like, well, I have no expectation of having you on the show anymore because you ghosted me twice. And he hits me up. Eventually he says, hey man, I'll come on the show. At which point I was like, you can go fuck yourself. I don't care. I don't need you that much. And
I got to meet Aaron finally and talk.
I wasn't going to bring him on anymore. I figured the Russia stuff was going to die down at some point, and he would have to jump onto another issue, is what it is. But what happened was the issue came out about the case and how the judge essentially browbeat the prosecution for saying that the Russians had something to do with it. That's astonishing. Yeah. Now, the mainstream media didn't talk about that at all.
Of course not.
But how it's like you've hyped up a case for the last 3 years, and the judge in this case has just said, look, you have said that Russia was associated with these guys, and that's onerous because you don't know that. You can't prove that. And just because media does it, media could say whatever it wasn't once. You guys are under a certain jurisprudence. You have an honesty thing. The media doesn't. That's astonishing. That's astonishing. And so the person who's the go-to for that is just laughing Aaron Mate. And so I was like, all right.
Well, he's just, practiced journalism where many others have failed. So are you following the new information out about the whole Seth Rich thing with Isikoff?
I saw something come up about that, but I don't know all of the ins and outs of it.
I can't. Names are falling out of my head right now. I can't. I don't want to.
Seymour Hersh came out one day, and Seymour Hersh said that the FBI looked into the computer and saw that it was Seth Rich. That was Seymour Hersh's thing.
Right.
Seymour Hersh was asked about it later. Seymour Hersh was like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about." Now Seymour Hersh gets dicey on that because he doesn't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. But the thing is, just because you say that somebody gave something from their computer doesn't necessarily mean you're saying Hillary Clinton whacked him. Those are two different things, even though the two get conflated all the time.
Okay, so it's Ellen Ratner is Butowski's source. Let's see. You saw. Okay, there's a lawsuit. Butowski was the guy that was going to be the private investigator or something for the rich family. I don't know. Have you seen any of this yet?
I haven't looked that much into it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I just saw it today, and but there's a guy. You should have him on your show. I think he would like to. Do you follow a guy? He goes by @Ventucky Spaz on Twitter.
I do not.
It's Curry Dobson. He's the one. He had a video that went viral from a Tulsi event.
Okay.
Anyway, check him out. I wonder if he's been tweeting a lot about this case, and I just now saw it today, and I'm trying to catch up. I'm sure probably some of you people listening probably know.
Somebody tweeted something about it. It
has to do with Butowski and the outing this person as his source.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the person died or something, and the information came out after the person died.
Well, that was the WikiLeaks lawyer Ratner.
Oh, okay, that's what they're talking about.
So there's his sister. I don't know. I don't want to give wrong information, but yeah, some stuff is coming out now, and I kind of don't really know how the mainstream media is gonna. Well, they'll find some way to continue to ignore it.
Well, I mean, look, bias goes both ends. There's no absolute position on this stuff. And in the same way people have a bias in trying to knock that stuff down, there can also be a bias in trying to prop it up.
Right.
I tend to let this marinate for a day or so because sometimes, I'll give you a perfect example. When Joy Behar comes out and CNN publishes this thing saying that Trump told Cohen to lie. Do you remember this? No, it wasn't told Cohen to lie. It was something that came out with CNN. Based on the dates of it, it would show that Trump campaign lied about something that was somewhat of a big deal. And CNN reports the story.
Right?
Yeah, CNN reports the story. And Joy Behar comes out and she starts screaming that we got him, talking about they got Trump. And then CNN a day later says, our bad, we got the dates wrong. It's like, that looks so bad.
They do that all the time. You don't do that. You're more accurate, Jamarl. But anybody listening.
But this one is just charged. The Seth Rich stuff is just a charged thing. And so
it is.
Or a little bit better to see.
Okay, I'm going to read this. And anybody, please go follow. He came on our live stream once. He's fantastic. I love this guy. It's @Ventucky Spaz, SPAZ. Curry Dobson is the name he uses. Okay. And this is from the lawsuit, Butowski's lawsuit. Lawsuit outs Ellen Ratner as source for Seth Rich. Hang on a second. And it says, Miss Ratner said Mr. Assange told her that Seth Rich and his brother Aaron were responsible for releasing the DNC emails to WikiLeaks. Mr. Assange wanted the information relayed to Seth's parents as it might explain the motive for Seth's murder. So Butowski's created a website. Anyway, a lot of stuff's coming out, and I'm with you on this. I want the facts, and I have a bias, my own bias. I admit about Russiagate. I think it was cooked up, and we haven't seen any evidence yet. I think. I like Aaron Matei's coverage of it. He's just sticking to the facts, and that's what I want to see. Is just the facts.
Yeah, Aaron has been awesome on it. Look, he's a badass journalist, and he's been doing that when he was on Real News Network. It's funny. What's his name? Paul J. is my favorite on Real News. Mm-hmm. And at one point, when Aaron Matei used to come onto the show, it was kind of like, it's like you watch a channel, and it's like somebody who's just kind of giving news, but you're not really paying that much to the personality of the person who's giving the news. Mm-hmm. And when the Russiagate stuff came out, Aaron started just kind of, it's like, well, look, do we really know this, or are you guys asserting this? Right. And when you get into that point of saying, well, is there a point of view that says it wasn't the Russians? Mm-hmm. And they never took that. They never even engage that point. Like it
No.
never occurred to them. Like when
No.
Mueller did that case, I often wonder, did Mueller ever even consider that it wasn't the Russians? I would guarantee you the answer is no.
Right.
The answer is
So
no.
we have that they didn't look, weren't able to look at the servers, that, it was just CrowdStrike that did.
Yeah, that stuff is weird. That stuff is really bizarre.
But have you Aaron Matei's dad, Gabor, Aaron did an interview with him where they talk about Russiagate and like the psychology of it.
Yeah.
And just that how people maybe were kind of shocked about Trump win and what that meant, and that it was easier to find this other boogeyman, in Putin. And so it's very interesting. You can see where Aaron, I've listened to several of his dad's interviews now, and he's just a fascinating person.
His dad is pretty cool.
Yeah.
In fact, I did not even know that was his dad. Like I remember, I've seen that guy talk about.
I haven't seen him.
I've seen him talk about other stuff. I want to say zeitgeist. That's what it is. So Peter Joseph was working with the foundation, with the Venus Project, Jack Fresco.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Joseph took a lot of the stuff from Jack Fresco and he put numbers to it. So essentially the program that Peter Joseph was running with in Zeitgeist was essentially Jack Fresco. It was the Venus Project. It was just the difference is Peter Joseph's contribution to this is stats. He's a numbers guy. Like he has an entire book, The Human Rights Movement, where he gives all this numbers to like human wellness and human health, and how like the plagues of the society, like crime and drug abuse and all these other things, kind of rise into the society when human health is not taken into quote. Like amazing guy.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, his dad was on that video.
I wouldn't doubt it, because he did a similar interview on a Scottish television program talking about health and wellness and addiction and the psychology of all of that, and it was amazing.
I could be wrong, but it's one of those. I want to say it's like either Zeitgeist, the third one, or the second one, because after the first one, Peter Joseph he started asking, it's okay. Well, what's the solution to this? In which case, he found the Venus Project, and he started having people add information to it. And that's why I think I know his dad from. His dad was amazing in that video.
And if you watch him in the interview, what I was just saying, the Scottish television, you can see where Aaron gets that. Like they try to sort of put words in his mouth, and he's like, and he just keeps coming back to the facts. No, I'm saying this. No, it's the same way that Aaron did with James Risen, which I thought was just beautiful. And
Aaron is amazing at that. And he has to be that way because he is pushing back against a storm of, a shit storm.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of criticism for it, but he's been really good at it. Like he's like, I call him Bonesaw because most of the people who come up with him with this type of stuff, and it runs the gamut. It's not even just Russiagate. Like if you ever see him just prowling Twitter, like he eats people alive. Yeah. Like I always tell people, if he's going after you for something, just walk away. Like, because oftentimes, like, he's not going after you for something that he thinks he's going to lose on. He's going after you for something that he's pretty confident he's going to win on.
Right.
He's prowling Twitter for the moment of jumping on somebody. And it's like some unsuspecting person crossing the street is like, bam, they're like, a fucking mountain line.
But I also want to shout out to Jordan Sheridan also, because I got to talk with him a little bit more too. And I just want to say, what he's doing with the just reporting that we desperately need that too, the on the ground reporting.
Yes.
The stuff he's stayed on that story in Flint. And
the water story.
One of my 2 published articles ever, one was on lead poisoning. It had to do with lead paint, so it's a story that I care about a lot.
Yeah.
But I think he's doing a great job. So that panel at Left Forum to me was worth it, just to see that.
The saddest part, and I'll end it on this, is that people oftentimes think that problems for people are individual problems. Like the fact that a kid is somehow drinking lead water or a community is purely a problem for those people, missing the point that that kid is going to grow up. That kid is going to have a lower IQ. That kid is going to be more prone for crime. That kid is going to need more assistance from the standpoint of their state. If you're talking about jail, hospitals, if you're talking about mental stuff, like it affects the community. Like it's not just an individual thing. People like, I don't want to put money into that. And then they're shocked when somebody hits them over the head when they're coming home from work.
I think it's because there's too much just looking at the short term and not looking at the long term. Of course, it's how we operate. But yeah, I've often wanted to say that to
What's up
conservatives,
with
especially
individualism? This
don't.
country makes certain assumptions about individualism that don't exist. Like it's a cultural thing. Like if you look at our houses, we partition our houses into multiple spaces. It's like
Mhm.
have different rooms, living room. The kids have their own bedrooms and everything else. Why? Why? Why does a kid have their own bedrooms? It's somewhat of an assumption that the kids are going to get their own bedrooms because the kids are individuals and they need their own space. But that's an assumption. That's a cultural thing. Like a lot of the stuff becomes cultural issues where you tell people that they're individuals, and it's like we've pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps and this
Right.
running individualism, and that stuff is nonsense. It's utter nonsense. Don't get me wrong, there's an aspect of individualism, and even when I argue, I think oftentimes I'm taking a libertarian argument. So don't misunderstand me, but that ability to be an individual is entirely ensconced in state or in some aspect where your society is backing you up. And even if it's not state, some aspect, like, your ability to go to school, your ability to get food and shelter and housing and everything else, and the policies that are put in place. If that stuff is not done in a way that is supportive of you, your society will suffer. And you're going to have more people in worse straits not having those situations. And don't misunderstand me. I don't mean this is this kind of like communist takeover or everything. I just mean this in the very basics of any
We should
notion of
have
free
clean
association.
water. We
Yeah,
should
right.
have
Clean water. Like any notion of free association requires me to, at the very least, be able to have clean water to be able to have some kind of debate with you about some kind of agreement. Like, talking about socialism.
And the damage, like you said, the IQ. I mean, that's serious. That is, lifetime possibly.
That's lifetime.
That
People-
might have to be given to that kid. It's
Yeah.
tragic. It's horrible. And
Yeah. And
unfortunately,
that kid could most likely
not
enter
just
the prison system where you're paying $30,000 a year in order to keep that kid fed and everything else.
yeah.
There are consequences to the larger society for having individuals shirk. And people are
Yeah.
like, well, those people should be, they should be individuals and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's like, yeah, but in the process of them not doing that, are you okay with the results in the society?
Right. Well, I think some are just like, well, I'll just move further into my gated community. I can get bottled water, and I mean, unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. So
they're like, I have clean water in my gated community.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Kelly, look, I really appreciate you coming on to the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you for talking to informing my audience your perspectives about the left forum. And I know any one person perspective is not the end all be all. So, but I still appreciate yours. Yeah.
It was informative. It's good to network if you're into that, and you learn a lot. There's so many panels you can't possibly go to all of them. So got to pick and choose. But yeah, if you're in New York or close by, and I guess there's a left forum too.
West Coast left forum.
West Coast, sorry. Yeah. Left Coast. Yeah.
Well, people kept asking for it. I remember the last time when I went, people were like, what about us? You have all of these people on the West Coast and they have no way of, I guess it's such an expense.
Right.
And so, there's that. And if I'm not mistaken, Richard Wolff was going to one of those. I think that's kind of what tipped my attention to it.
Oh, okay.
But
well, great to see you, Jamarl.
It is absolutely great to see you.
Sleeping sometimes.
I know, right? I know. Soapbox after dark. I still have one or two shows after this evening. So.
Oh, okay. Great to see you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, guys. If you all enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And you can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. Bye-bye.